Like the of the Rebbe to learn Hilchas Beis Abchira in the days, maybe in Tzorim, we have today the honor to have Choshev Yoman Askun Agabai, Arav Achosid, Arav Shai Zurkin will give us insight into Hilchas Beis Abchira. Before Shai starts the shir, everybody should give tzedakah b'tzibor as the hero of the Rebbe.
The Rambam writes in Perek Vav Hilchas Beis Abchira, Hamikdash kulei lo haya b'misher ela b'mayla hahar. That the Beis Hamikdash wasn't built on a plain surface, on a flat surface. It had different elevations and different levels. And the Rambam goes in detail to explain how it worked. You went from the Shar Mizrachi throughout to the Har Bayis. You went up until the Chel on one level. Then you went from the Chel to the Ezas Noshim in 12 miles. From the Ezas Noshim to the Ezas Yisrael, you went with 15 miles, and then you went up Mahalach Kol Ezas Yisrael b'Shove. From the Ezas Yisrael to the Ezas Kohanim was you went up 1 amo Mahalach Kol Ezas Kohanim Mizbeach. Then you had another 3 steps to go up from the Ezas Kohanim to the Mizbeach. And then from there to the Ulam you went up with 12 miles. And the Ulam and the Heichal was a flat surface, no elevations. So every word in the Rambam is meduyik, and the Rambam is not writing some gestures or melitzas. The Rambam writes Amikdash Kulei Lo Haya B'Mishra. The Rambam could have written in a simple term Amikdash Kulei Haya B'Mayla Hahar. It could have been the Rambam could have written that the Beis Hamikdash was built up the hill, but he's writing it Lo Haya B'Mishra Ela B'Mayla Hahar. It wasn't on a flat surface; rather, it was built up on the mountain. So the reason why the Rambam writes this is because in the first parak of Hilchas Beis Abchira, the Rambam writes that the din of Beis Hamikdash is learned out of the pasuk Vasu li Mikdash, v'shachanti b'seichem, which means that it's a hemshech of the Mishkan, which would seem that the dinim of Beis Hamikdash is similar to the way it was in the Mishkan. And the Rambam writes that the dvarim that are ikar b'binin habayis, he writes there's a Kodesh HaKadoshim, there's the Ulam, the Heichal. What he lists how the Beis Hamikdash has to be built, and he says that this is there's a mechitza around it, Ke'en Kali Achotzer, Shahib Midbar. So he basically says that the Beis Hamikdash was similar to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Mishkan. And then he writes in other places, he writes that the Shalish Machanes that were in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, connect and Ladeiris, you have them also in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Yerushalayim, in the Beis Hamikdash you have the Shalish Machanes. So it seems that the Beis Hamikdash has a lot of similarities to the Mishkan. So one would think that just like the Mishkan was built on one flat surface, you would think that the Beis Hamikdash should be built the same way. Says the Rambam, no, Lo Haya B'Mishar Ela B'Mayla Hahar. It was not similar in this prat. It was not similar to the Mishkan. It was not flat. Rather, it had elevations, and you had to go higher and higher. So the Rambam is not writing this tam because that's the way it was. Lepoil on the mountain, they have to build higher, but it's a halacha. Especially when the Rambam writes Lo Haya B'Mishar Ela B'Mayla Hahar, it's a din li'ikuva. It seems like that it was not kosher. It was not a Beis Hamikdash. If it was built, if you dug out the mountain on a flat surface and then you built the whole Beis Hamikdash on one level, it would not have been a kosher Beis Hamikdash. You have to build it dafka B'Mayla Hahar. So the question is, since the Beis Hamikdash has a din that is it's built off the Mishkan, the din is learned out of the Mishkan. So why was it taka that the Beis Hamikdash had to be built on different levels? Now there's an obvious question. It says David HaMelech says that Hakol b'chsav miyad Hashem alai hiskil. David HaMelech tells Shlomo that the structure of the Beis Hamikdash has to be built in a certain way because that's what they showed me, the way that it has to be built. Hakol b'chsav, everything was written to me and shown to me. But first of all, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's likuva. There are many dinim that are written that has to be built in a certain way, but it was only lemitzvah, not likuva. The Rambam seems to be writing here Lo Haya B'Mishra Elo. It seems that it's likuva, that it has to be built that way. And secondly, just because it's written in a pasuk doesn't mean it's a gzeres hakosov. There's a svara, so we should, if we could find a svara to explain why it was different in this prat, we should find an explanation. Now, although there were many inyanim, that were many differences in the Beis Hamikdash that you don't have in the Mishkan. For starters, the whole Mishkan was built out of Yeriyos and the Krushim, and the Beis Hamikdash was built out of Avonim. But that doesn't. But so first of all, that doesn't answer the question. That you know, the fact that there are differences, we have to understand. Secondly, some of the differences is understood by Pashtos, that if you're building such a large structure, you need to build with avonim, with strong material that can hold up such a big structure. And thirdly, here the Rambam is medayik that there's something unique over here, that dafka by this din of the Beis Hamikdash, dafka over here the Rambam emphasizes loy haya b'misher ela b'mayla haaretz, to say that is punkt by this prat. There's a difference between the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. So this is what we have to understand. So to explain this, the Rebbe wants to elaborate on the difference we find between the Mishkan and the Mikdash in the type of kedusha that it had. In the Beis Hamikdash, each shetach had a different level of kedusha, and therefore every type of kedusha it had went up a different level. This was not so by the Mishkan. In the Mishkan was a diras arai, as the pasuk says, "Va'ayeh misalech ba'ayel of a Mishkan." It was lafisha. There was no kedusha in the Makim HaMishkan. So much so, after they traveled, they moved the Mishkan from one place to another. The place where the Mishkan stood had no kedusha in it, similar to Har Sinai. After Hashem blew the shofar, there was no more kedusha in this, and the Har Sinai, there was no kedusha that remained in the Makim HaMishkan. Mashein came the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is a Makim HaSheyivchar Hashem. Hashem chose the Makim and chose the Karka HaMishkan. HaMikdash. Every place was chosen with a special, with kedusha. So therefore, every part of the Beis Hamikdash, depending on the level of kedusha that it had, was the level of kedusha was reflected in the heart. So the Ezras Noshim had one level of kedusha, then it went up to another level of kedusha into Ezras Yisrael and the Ezras Kohanim and so on. Every place had a different level of kedusha, so it had to go up on a different level. But the question that arises is that if so, then the Rambam writes that the ulam and the heichal was b'shavah. Now, if according to this, that every level of kedusha went up another level in the karka and the makim, went up in the gashmistic, a place took up another level. So then, out of all the places in kedushas, the Rambam writes, Esther Kedusha is saying, and the holiest place was the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We all know that that in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, only the Kohen Gadol could go in, only Yom Kippurim, B'Shas HaAvodah. So if so, out of all the places that should have had elevation, should have been to the Kodesh, from the Kodesh to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, should have been with a flight of stairs, and not just the regular stairs, 12 or 15. Should have been Riboy Milas, many stairs. How come the Rambam writes that that it was on the same level? So Vaitis, for this we have to also explain the difference between the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. The type of kedusha that rested in the Mishkan was a kedusha that came with Seder Ishtalshalos, was a revelation of Seder Ishtalshalos, and therefore the Mishkan was built with Yeriyos and with Krushim, which that's the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah Oyer that representing Tzemeach and Chai. They both have some type of chayis in them. You can see there's a chayis on Tzemeach and on Chai. And that shows that there was some type of chayis or ruchnis, some ruchnis in there, and the Gilui HaShechina that was in the Mishkan was a Gil of Seder Shtalshalos, and therefore the Yeriyos, the top was the Yeriyos, which was made out of Chai, and then below that was the Krushim, which was out of Tzemeach, and on the bottom was the Karka, but that didn't have any kedusha in there. In the Beis Hamikdash was a place where the Eibishter was Hashras Hashchina Na'ifin to fulfill the Tachlis HaKavan of Nesav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liyaz Le'dir B'Tachteinim. The Eibishter wanted a dir B'Tachteinim, that the Tachteinim itself, the Makim HaGashmi itself, should have Kedusha in it. And therefore, the Eibishter wanted that the Beis Hamikdash should be built out of daimim. Therefore, out of avonim, we have to take stones and build the Beis Hamikdash out of it, because dafka, the Gashmis itself, is where the Kedusha is going to rest. So therefore, the Shechina rested in the Mokim HaGashmi. The Mokim itself had Kedusha. The Shechina, the Kedusha permeated the Gashmi itself. And as each level of Kedusha rested on each Mokim Gashmi, it went up a level. So Bamedvar Mamurim is when the elevation, the Dag of Kedusha is Be'erech, one to the other. And so therefore, in order to go from one level to the other, you have to go up a few steps. Mashenkin, when you're talking about a level of Kedusha in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which is Aliyah Be'ein Aroich. The Gila Shechina, the way it was in the Beis in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, was the Gila of Atzmos, Nimna Nimnois, Mokimar and Einem and Amidah. So the Kedusha over there was not Madud Mugbal, had no Agvalis. So if you're going up from one level to another level in Kedusha, which has one, with the higher level is Be'erech to the lower level, so in order to climb to the higher level, you go up a few steps. But if it's Be'ein Aroich, so there's no way of measuring it in a Gashmistika, in some Gashmistika form. You can't, no matter how high you're going to go, you're never going to elevate yourself to the level to go up to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We find this by Reb Zera also. Reb Zera Tzomea Ta'anisa, in order to forget Talmud Bavli, in order to learn Talmud Yerushalmi. So when you're learning something which is Be'erech, you're learning something which is a very deep sugya, so obviously you can't forget what you learned before, because the Inyan that you understand before is a Yisoi to help you understand deeper things. But if what you're trying to understand is Be'ein Aroich, if it's Be'ein Aroich, then what the previous Madriga is already a stira, is disturbing your higher the higher Madrigas. And therefore you have to forget, you have to let go of the previous Madrigas. So therefore, similarly to this in the Beis HaMikdash, to go from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there was no Madrigas, because it was a state of bittul. In a state of bittul, you can't go up Begashmis. Kule bebitul, kule beshava. You have to let go of all the Madrigas, and that's the only way you can go to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Similarly to this in Aveda is that when you have when you're the koiches of the neshama, koiches hanefesh, when you're using the koiches hanefesh, stam the koiches, so you have limitations and how much you could in order to every madriga, in order to reach a high madriga, you have to go from one madriga to another, and you're limited in the koiches that you have. But when you use the koiches that you have in Etzman Neshama, which is the Kodesh HaKadoshim of the Yid, the Shechanti V'Seichim Sech Kol Achad, that's the Etzman Neshama that we have. There in that Lagabi, that Madriga and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there is no limitation, there's no Hagbolis, and we have the koiches of Mesiras Nefesh to overcome any challenges, to fulfill the Eibishter's Ratzon, and certainly in this time we have the koiches to overcome the challenges of our times, and especially in the 9 days. Therefore, once we should be meisif in the Mudat Torah, meisif in stock, and meisif all in yonim to fulfill the Tachlis HaKavanah, bring the Shekhinah down here Lamato, take it from Yad Mamish.
Right after Mav there will be a Siyum. After the Siyum there will be a Shir in Yoni Moshiach V'Geuleh. Yeah.